evening, students. Today we are going to discuss your sixth chapter, that is reproduction, the generating system. So still now up to fifth lesson you are cross through different systems like digestive system, respiratory system, transportation system, excretory system, even So even like all other life process, even reproduction is also very important life process. Why there is the need of reproduction means the main purpose of reproduction for the continuation of the species or for the continuation of life. So if organisms stop their life by one generation, then there is no life on the earth. But through the process of reproduction, the organisms continue their generations, means the life continues or the life exists continuously by the process of reproduction. So actually what is meant by reproduction means all organisms are capable of producing their offsprings or young ones. So the process of producing the offsprings or the process of producing the young ones we call as reproduction. So generally along not only for the continuation of life, for example from compared your childhood, you are grown up. So how your growth was possible, and for example if any wounds happen to your body, after few days they will be healed. So how this all happens means even in those process also reproduction involves. How means even in your body the cells continuously dividing and to add more number of cells, because of that only the growth of an organism is possible. Means here there is also reproduction of new cells in your body. Even for example any damaged parts after few days they will be healed, means in the place of the damaged cells the new cells will be produced by the process of cell division. So reproduction involves these all. So coming to reproduction will be different in different organisms. For example if unicellular organisms like paramecium, based on the different conditions it undergo different modes of reproduction. For example if the conditions are favorable, the reproduction it just simply split into two by transversely, so it will able to produce two new paramecium. So that process we call as fission. In the fission means simply splitting. Again the fission includes either binary fission means splitting into two, or multiple fission means the organism divides into many. So but in the one mode of reproduction takes place in paramecium, that is conjugation. So in the conjugation, when the conditions are unfavorable, the paramecium undergo conjugation process. In that two parameciums come close together and they exchange their genetic material. So even it is also similar like sexual reproduction, that we call as conjugation. So based on the either favorable or unfavorable conditions, paramecium undergo fission or conjugation. Then actually basing on the number of parents involved either and the reproductive units or gametes formed, the reproduction is of mainly two types. The first one we call as asexual reproduction and the second one we call as sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Then coming to asexual reproduction, it always involves a single parent. The reproduction which involves a single parent and there is no formation of gametes at all. Such reproduction we call as asexual mode of reproduction. Means in the asexual mode of reproduction there is only one parent was involved and there are no gamete formation. Such reproduction we call as asexual mode of reproduction. And asexual reproduction is of again different types. For example the first one in the asexual mode of reproduction, that is fission. It takes place in the organisms like paramecium, even bacteria also. I already told to you fission means simply splitting of the parent organism into daughter organism. So if you take either amoeba or paramecium protozoans, they will be split, or binary fission takes place and then from one paramecium, two daughter paramecium will be coming, and in the fission, once the reproduction over, there was no existence of the parent. Why? Because parent only here reproduce or divides into daughter organisms. Even coming to bacteria also, in the bacteria also fission takes place. For that best example, even curdling of milk means, generally at your home, what your mother did? Your mother takes some lukewarm milk, and further she add few spoons of the curd. A curd or buttermilk. So after few hours the milk curdles and it settled into curd. Actually how it was happen means, the bacteria known as lactobacillus bacteria, it just convert the milk into curd. Means how it able to convert the milk into curd means, actually the number of bacteria, so the number of bacteria will be divided by fission and it will increase its number. So because of that more number of bacteria, there is the fastening of the conversion of milk into curd. Means, so for that only here instead of compared to the cool milk, the lukewarm milk turns curd into a less time. So here the bacteria increases its number, and because of that bacteria colony only, the bacteria convert milk into curd. And the next process we known as budding. Budding mostly we seen in the unicellular fungi like yeast. So you already know yeast. So in the yeast cells, from its body surface, small bud-like structure arises, and this bud-like structure grows rapidly, and after that it will also take some nuclei from its parent yeast, and later it divides, and the bud, once the bud grows completely, divides from the parent, and it will grow as new individual that we seen in the yeast. Next one, fragmentation. So here fragmentation is a special process in which a piece of organism will be able to divide into a complete organism. So most of the lower organisms like algae, even fungi, some land plants have that capacity or ability to grow new individual from a piece or from a fragment, that we call as fragmentation. And regeneration, even regeneration is also similar to fragmentation. In some organisms, the body parts, most of their body parts are able to produce the whole body actually, such we call as regeneration. Example is planaria. So in those organisms, either accidentally, if they lost any body part, they able to regenerate their body part. So that we call as regeneration. Even we seen in that wall lizard also, if its tail is cut somehow, after few days it able to regenerate its tail again. And the next one we call as parthenogenesis. Actually it was some special process in the parthenogenesis. Generally in the sexual reproduction, female gamete fuses with the male gamete to form the zygote. That zygote later develops into new individual. But here the parthenogenesis is a special. Why? Because means in this process the female gamete directly turns into the zygote without fertilization takes place. So mostly we see in the parthenogenesis process in the natural like ants, wasps and bees also. Even for obtaining seedless fruits like seedless grapes, seedless watermelon, these all obtained by because of the process that is we call as parthenocarpy. Even that is also like parthenogenesis only. The next one, for example, the vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation means generally you all know that the plants, the new plants are formed from the seeds of the plant. But not only seeds of the plant, even generally other than the seeds, most of the plant parts are able to develop into new plants. So if the vegetative part of the plant, give rise to the new plant, that we called as actually vegetative reproduction or vegetative propagation. It's seen in the plants. So the vegetative propagation again of two types. The first one natural vegetative propagation, and the second one artificial vegetative propagation. So in the natural vegetative propagation methods, the plants naturally from their vegetal parts they form or develop the new plants. So first one, natural or vegetative propagation occurs by different parts of the plants. For example, in the plant like bryophyllum in Telugu we call it as ranapala. So at their leaf margin it have small buds, we call it as epiphyllous buds, and from that buds the new plants will be arises. So that is vegetative propagation through leaves occurs in bryophyllum. And the next one we call as vegetative propagation through stem. Actually the aerial stems, which are the plants which are having aerial weak stems, in those plants anyway those are very weak stems, that's why mostly while they are passing on the ground, if that contact with the soil, if the plants which are having weak stems like stolons or runners, if they pass on the ground, if they contact with the ground, immediately they develop some instant roots. What we call those roots means adventitious roots. So if the portion of the plant which have adventitious roots cuts with the parent plant, again it will be able to develop into the new plant. So this we call, mainly we seen in the plants like plants which are having stolons. So the reproduction occurs through stolons means jasmine and strawberry are the example. And next one, bulbs. Even onion also reproduce vegetatively. If we just take the onion and if we keep in the burrow in the moist soil by developing roots, and it will grow as the new plants, means bulbs is onion is example. The next one, calm is also one modified stem that we called as example for calm is colocasia. And tuber, for the example of these all are the different bulbs, calms, tubers, these all are the stems only, but these are modified into different forms actually for storage of food. So coming to tuber, potato, on the potato we seen small black dot like structure, what we call eyes of potato. If we take the small piece of potato which already have the eye on it, if we buried in the soil, and it will able to give rise to the new plant. Even rhizome is also one modified stem, that is mainly we seen in the ginger and turmeric. So these all are the examples for the plants that are naturally propagated through the stems. Stolons example jasmine and strawberry, and for bulbs onion, calms colocasia, tuber potato, and rhizome ginger and turmeric. The next one, even some plants naturally propagated by through roots also. For example, like carrot, radish, dahlia, these all are the plants which are propagated through roots. The next one, these all actually propagated methods which occur by the plant naturally, but are benefit even we artificially propagated the plant by some methods. So these methods we called as artificially propagated methods, and that propagation we called as artificial propagation. So in the artificial propagation mainly three types are there. Traditionally artificial propagation, first one we called as cutting, and the second one we called as layering, and the third one we called as grafting. So first one, cutting. So in the cutting it is actually very commonly we see in the cutting process in our daily life. Generally most of us how we grow the new plants like even hibiscus rose means simply we cut the stem and just we keep the portion of the stem in the moist soil. After few days it will develop its own roots and grown as the new plant. So in the cutting we select one of the branch from the plant which have at least one node. So we after separating the branch from the plant, if we just grow the branch of the plant in the moist soil, it develop its own roots and it grown as the individual plant. So mainly we seen in the cutting like hibiscus and rose. The next one, layering. So in the layering process we select one of the branches from the plant, we just bend the plant towards the ground and we keep some of the portion of that branch into the soil, and the tip of the branch should be exposed above the ground in such a way that even sometimes to bury the portion of the branch we just keep support like stone or something. So after few days the part of the branch which we buried in the soil, it will develop its own roots or adventitious roots, and after that we separate that branch from the parent plant and it will be grow again into the new plant, that we called as layering. And the next one, grafting. This is actually the most useful method of artificial vegetative propagation, through which we will get the plants with the desirable characters. Means in the grafting method we are selecting two plants. So for example, in your garden one plant gives the fruits which are bigger in size, but those are not tasty. At the same time, one more plant, one more tree which gives the fruits, those are very tasty but smaller in size. So we want to get the fruits which are either they are very tasty in nature, at the same time their size is also little bit big. So at such cases, means if we want two different desirable characters within the same plant, then we go for the grafting method. In the grafting method we select two different plants actually, and in the two plants, the plant in the grafting method we grafted the branch of the one plant over the stem of the another plant. So we take two plant parts here actually, the plant which have the roots and present in the ground, that plant we called as, the plant portion we called as stalk, and the portion of the stem or the portion of the branch of another plant which is grafted over the stalk we called as scion. So these two names are very important, first one scion and the next one stalk. So scion is inserted into the stalk plant. After that we wrapped the thread and polythene cover over it. We wrapped the polythene cover with the thread, and after that after few days these two stems of the two different plants continue their growth and grown as the single plant. Their two stems join together after few days and they grown as the single plant. So here the grafting is mainly used to produce the flowers and fruits from the very young scion. Actually after growing some stage only the scion able to produce flowers and fruits, but because of the grafting technique, even the stem, even the very early scion also able to produce flowers and fruits. So for grafting, different flowers and varieties of fruits and flowers are produced. Mainly we used in mango, apple, rose, even citrus also. But these all methods are artificial vegetative propagation. These all are traditional methods. But the advanced, the modern artificial propagation method is nothing but tissue culture. A very useful method in the propagation of the plants. So in the tissue culture, simply they are taking either few cells or tissue of any part of the plant, either they are taking few cells or tissues of any part of the plant, and they transfer these either tissue or cell into the growth medium which contain some growth hormones. Because of the plant growth hormones and the nutrients provided in the growth medium, the cells or the tissues are capable to give rise to the new plants. So because of the tissue culture, by using a few tissues or few cells, we are able to produce 1,000 number of plants also within the very less space also, and it is more efficient technique, the tissue culture. Here the ability of a plant cell or plant tissue to give rise to a complete plant we call as totipotency. Totipotency is nothing but the ability of the plant cell or the plant tissue to give rise to the new plant. The next one, mostly the fungi like bread mold. Bread mold means rhizopus, even mucor, most of the bacteria are reproduced through some special reproductive units called as spores. For example, if you see this is a structure of rhizopus like hyphae, and here the spores are also like seeds. These are also reproductive units. These spores develop in a special structure that we call as sporangium. So once the spores are developed completely inside the sporangium ruptures and the spores are dispersed through air, and when they fall on the ground, food or any surface, if the conditions are favorable, means like damp and wet conditions are there, these spores immediately germinate and develop to new fungi. And even not only fungi, the plants like ferns, fern plants also we see in the spores. Reproduction occurs through spores, but in the fungi we call the structure where spores developed as sporangium, but coming to ferns, the structure are nothing but the leaf which where the spores are developed, we called it as sporophyll. What we call the fern leaf is also known as sporophyll. And the next one, sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction. So what is the major difference between asexual and sexual reproduction? Means asexual reproduction, here there is only involvement of the here there is only involvement of the single parent. But coming to sexual reproduction involves two parents. The same time the sexual reproduction always associated with the formation of special reproductive units we called as gametes. The reproduction which involves the formation as well as the fusion of gametes. The formation as well as the fusion of gametes takes place. Such reproduction we call as sexual mode of reproduction. And coming to humans, the sexual reproduction occurs between two parents, either male and another one female. Now we go through the reproductive system of both male and female. Then coming to first one, the male reproductive system, it having a pair of testes and a pair of vas deferens or seminal ducts. A pair of testes and vas deferens are seminal ducts, and even seminal vesicles, even urethra, penis, these all are the parts of the male reproductive system. So actually in the male reproductive system, the male gametes are nothing but sperms are formed. In the male reproductive system, the sperms are male reproductive gametes are formed in the testes. So the testes are located outside of the abdominal cavity in the man, and these testes are located in the pocket like structure we call as scrotum. Why? Because for the proper motility and for the proper formation of sperms, there is a need of less temperature than compared to our body temperature. So because of that, the testes are located outside of the outside of the body in a pocket like structures we call as scrotum. So because the testes are located in the scrotum, the temperature is less than 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius, lower than the body temperature. And inside the testes are highly coiled and form a tubule like structure we call them as seminiferous tubules. Actually the sperms within the testes formed in these seminiferous tubules. From the seminiferous tubules, those are entered into the another small tube like structures known as vas efferentia. From the vas efferentia, these were all vas efferentia opens into the highly coiled structure which is wrapped over the testes we called as epididymis. In the epididymis, the sperms which are produced in the seminiferous tubules are temporarily stored. So where the sperms are temporarily stored means in the epididymis which is wrapped around the testes. And from the epididymis, these sperms are entered into the duct-like structures known as either seminal ducts or vas deferens. And here two major glands known as prostate gland. Actually these are Cowper glands. Cowper glands and prostate glands are associated with the male reproductive system. And one more important structure is known as seminal vesicles. These seminal vesicles produce a fluid known as seminal fluid which help to provide nutrients to the sperms when they are outside of the body. And these prostate gland secretions help to activate the sperm cells, the secretions of prostate gland. So here the two seminal vesicles joins to the vas deferens and form a common duct we call as ejaculatory duct. Seminal vesicles through the small ducts they enters into the vas deferens and they form a common duct we call as ejaculatory duct. So through the ejaculatory duct, sperms mixed with the semen or seminal fluid passes, and finally from that ejaculated duct those are excreted through urethra. Urethra in male we call as urinogenital tract. Why? Because it is the common passage for both sperm and urine in the Later, through the ejaculatory duct, it opens into the urethra. The urethra is a common passage for both urine and the sperms in the males. That's why we call it as urinogenital tract. And even the Cowper gland secretions also help to neutralize the acidic medium for proper functioning of the sperm. And the sperms are the male gametes. Here this is the structure of the sperm. Sperm mainly contain three parts. Neck part, here this is actually head, neck and middle piece, tail. So over the head it having the small cap like structure that we called as acrosome. Acrosome of the sperm help the sperm to fuse with the ovum or the female gamete, and the neck connect the head and tail, and here the middle piece contain some mitochondria which provide energy by the cellular respiration while the sperm is moving. And the next one, female reproductive system of the human. Coming to female reproductive system, in the female reproductive system mainly three important parts are there. The first one we call as ovary, and the next one fallopian tube, and the wide structure, pear-shaped sac-like structure we called as uterus. And the uterus, opening of the uterus we call as cervix, and cervix finally opens to outside through the vagina. So first one, actually the ovaries are the female reproductive structures which are located in the abdominal cavity of the female. Coming to testes, those are located outside of the abdominal cavity, but ovaries are located inside the abdominal cavity of the female. A pair of ovaries are present actually. Because of the cell division, the ovums are known as female gamete. Ovum or egg are female gametes. First at early stages, these are formed in the special follicle-like structures known as Graafian follicles. In the Graafian follicles, the ovums or eggs are developed in the ovary. In each ovary, every Graafian follicle, an ovum is present. So once the ovum gets matured and developed in the Graafian follicle, it reaches to the surface of the ovary and it just release it to outside. Once the ovum or egg is released, that process we call as ovulation. So the release of egg or ovum, from the ovary we call as ovulation. And from the ovary, the ovum or egg enters into the narrow tube-like structures known as fallopian tubes. Even the fallopian tubes we also call as oviduct. Why? Because from the ovary the ovum passes through the fallopian tubes. These fallopian tubes have some funnel-like structures which mashes over the ovary. So these funnel-like structure, once the egg or ovum released from the ovary, it will enter into the funnel-like structure of the fallopian tube and passes through the fallopian tube. Actually, the fallopian tube is the place where the fertilization takes place in the female. So the sperm from the male body enters into the female body and it will finally reaches into the fallopian tube of the female reproductive system. Even the ovum is also present in the fallopian tube. That's why the fusion of the ovum and sperm takes place inside the fallopian tube, and this particular step only we call as fertilization. So ovulation takes place in the ovary, and where fertilization takes place means fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube or oviduct. So once the fertilization takes place, the fertilized egg, what we call that fertilized egg means the zygote. So here the fusion of the male and female gamete to form zygote we call as fertilization. So fertilization is again where the fertilization process occurs. Based on that, it is of two types. The first one we call as external fertilization, the second one we call as internal fertilization. For example, if you see aquatic animals like fish and frog, in those animals the fertilization of the sperm and ovum takes place in the water, means outside of their body. So such type of fertilization, the fertilization which occurs at the outside of the female body, we called as external fertilization. So coming to, if we observe fish and frog, they release vast number of eggs. Even the male frog also release a million number of sperm cells. Because of they are continuously exposed to different atmospheric changes. That's why these animals produce a number of sperms and eggs. So in that there is only some eggs and some sperms only get fertilized. So such type of fertilization we call as external fertilization. But coming to developed animals, including birds, even all higher animals, humans, these all animals, a fertilization process occurs inside the female body. We called it as internal fertilization. So in the internal fertilization, actually the fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube. Once the eggs gets fertilized and it will form into zygote. That zygote, by the repeated cell divisions, it form a ball or group of cells that we called as blastocyst. Actually that blastocyst again later develops into number of cells, and again it form the structure called as embryo, what we call embryo, zygote, blastocyst, after that embryo. So this embryo later turns into the baby, and here the development of the embryo takes place in the sac-like structure known as uterus. The uterus is the place where the development of embryo until the baby, it is completely takes place in the wall of the uterus. The wall or the lining of the uterus we called as endometrium, what we call endometrium. That endometrium lining having this soft tissue which provide all the necessary conditions and nourishment for the growing embryo. So if the fertilization over, the developed embryo from the zygote will be entered into the uterus, and it just embedded or sinks into the wall of the uterus. That particular step we called as implantation. So once the embryo developed, and remaining all changes takes place in the uterus only. But if the fertilization does not takes place, the endometrium lining along with some blood vessels, it just ruptures and it lead to the bleeding. That process only we call as menstruation. It occurs for every 28 days in the females. So but if the fertilization takes place, again the endometrium walls get thickened, and it is completely supplied with blood vessels for the proper nourishment of the embryo. And here the next one, once the embryo was formed, for the nourishment, protection, for all these purpose, the embryo around the embryo some membranes are formed. What are those membranes? Means chorion, amnion and allantois, yolk sac. These are the few membranes of the growing embryo. First one, chorion membrane. It is formed, it is the outermost membrane of the growing embryo, and here the membrane of the chorion of the embryo along with the uterus tissue of the mother, both together they form the special structure known as placenta. The chorionic tissue and the mother's uterus tissue together form a special structure known as actually placenta. This is very, very important. The placenta is the structure through which all the nutrients and oxygen are supplied from the mother to growing embryo. At the same time, all the waste and CO2 gases are diffused from embryo to mother. That structure we called as placenta. It is formed from mother's uterus as well as growing embryonic tissue. So after the chorion, the placenta is the tissue which acts as link between the mother and the growing embryo, and it is formed from both mother's uterus tissue and the chorionic tissue of the growing embryo. And after that, the growing embryo around itself form another cavity or membrane we call as amnion, and the cavity in the amnion we call as amniotic cavity, and this amniotic cavity is completely filled with the fluid we call as amniotic fluid. This amniotic fluid, it protects the growing embryo from the different shocks and blows, and it is very important structure. That amniotic fluid protects the growing embryo. And after that, even the allantois is also one more membrane formed by the growing embryo, and yolk sac. This yolk sac does not, it is also one membrane, but it does not place any specific role in the humans. And here umbilical cord, this umbilical cord is the tube like structure which connects the embryo with the placenta. Umbilical cord connects the placenta with the growing embryo. It just makes connection between the placenta and the embryo. So here the placenta and mother's tissue and actually embryonic tissue does not mix it at all. They are completely divide, but only through the diffusion, nutrients, oxygen, CO2, waste molecules, these all are diffused into and out of the embryo. And after from the third month of the pregnancy, the embryo we called as fetus. From the third month of pregnancy, the embryo we termed as fetus. In the fetus, the baby is clearly gets its shape, means it just develop all the body parts. From that, the body parts increase their size. So from the third month of pregnancy, the embryo we call as fetus. And for complete development of baby until the childbirth, it takes some time. That particular time period we called as gestation period. What we call gestation period, it is different for different animals, but coming to humans, it is either 280 days or 9 months. So once the gestation period is completed, the baby gets out of this mother's womb and enters into the new world. Once the 9 months gestation period over, the muscular layers, the muscles of the uterus contract rhythmically and to help to push the baby outside. So that we termed as the labor pains. So because of that labor pain, actually it is good side. The labor pain, it leads to the but at the end of the 9th month, the head of the baby will be turns to the vaginal side. Means here vagina we also called as birth canal through which the baby comes out. So by the end of the 9th month, the embryo head turns towards the vaginal side, but in very peculiar special cases only, inside the instead of head, feet first turns to vaginal side. At that time the delivery becomes problem. So after that, because of the labor pains, the baby will be come to outside, and after the baby comes to outside also, the umbilical cord still remains attached to the baby. So then after that, the doctors cut that, and here the mark of the umbilical cord only remains as the navel. Good evening students. We already discussed about the reproduction in animals, both sexual and asexual reproduction. Now we are going to learn about the sexual reproduction in the plants. And here the flower is the sexual part or the reproductive part of a plant, and the flower is responsible. So flower is the reproductive part of the plant, and the flower able to produce seeds, and from the seeds the new plants are arranged. And along with the vegetative propagation, the sexual reproduction plants occur through the flower. And what are the different parts of the flower? To learn about the different parts of the flower, here we see the example of the flower, that is Datura. So Datura flower we are taking example, and any flower mainly contain the parts of the flowers which are arranged in 4 folds. In that, the first one we called as calyx, the second one we called as corolla, and the third one we called as stamen, and fourth one pistil. If you take any flower, so the flower mainly is protected by the green color structure, green leaf-like structures which are arranged in first row, that we called as the calyx or sepal. If you take any flower like hibiscus, rose, even datura, any flower, below the flower, the green small leaf-like structures are present. Those we call as sepals or calyx. And below the calyx, in the second whole of flower, it is contain a very attractive color petals. So that we called as corolla. The second roll of the flower consists of corolla. And the third part of the flower is known as stamens. These are actually these stamens contain the germ cells are male reproductive parts. And these stamen again is also known as androecium. What is that? Androecium. The stamen again contain two parts. One is the lobe-like structure which we call as anther, contain two lobes, and in that actually the male gametes pollen grains are developed, and the sac-like structure which attached to the anther we call as filament. Anther and filament together called as stamen. Stamen is the male reproductive part of a flower, and the fourth part of the flower we call as pistil. Pistil is also known as gynoecium. Even pistil is also called as carpel or gynoecium. It is the female reproductive part of the flower. It includes again three parts. So the tip of the carpel or pistil we call as stigma. The long sac-like structure we call as style, and the bulgy portion which is in oval shape that we call as ovary. Ovary is the part actually where the ovules will develop. So the flower contains four parts. The first one we call as green color sepal or calyx, and the second one petals or corolla, and the third one the male reproductive part we call as stamen. Stamen is also known as androecium. The stamen include both anther and filament. And the fourth part we call as pistil. Pistil or carpel, it contains stigma, style and ovary. Most of the flowers here actually the stamen and pistil both are the reproductive part of a flower which contain germ cells, means which contain male and female gamete cells. So here stamens and pistils are the reproductive parts of a flower. And here the stamen, for example, if a flower contains either of the stamen or carpel, we call it as the unisexual flower, means either it may be a male flower or either it may be a female flower. Why? Because it contains just male part as the stamen or female part as the pistil or carpel. So for example, if you observe mostly there are family plants like, but some of the flowers which include both stamens and carpel in them, means both male and female reproductive parts in them, we call such flowers as the bisexual flowers. Why? Because they include both male and female reproductive parts like stamen and carpel or pistil. So Madura, hibiscus, these all are examples of the bisexual flowers. And here we see that what are the actually reproductive part, what are the different parts of a flower. But actually now we go learn how to the process of sexual reproduction takes place in the plants. So to understand further, we have to aware the structure of the ovary. Okay. So for example, first we just take this is the carpel or structure. Again it includes stigma, the tip of the carpel, and the style, and this one is ovary. So ovary is the place actually where ovules are developed. So for the sexual reproduction, for the formation of seeds, there should be the transfer of pollen from the stamen should reach to the stigma of the flower. That process we call as the pollination. What we call that means pollination. Pollination means here actually the pollens are the male gametes. Pollen grains contain male gametes which develops inside the anther of the stamen. So to reproduce or for formation of seeds, here the pollen from the anther should reach to the stigma of the flower. That process we call as pollination. So pollination means the process of transferring pollen grains from anther to stigma of a flower. But here the pollination will be again of two types. How many types means? Two types. The first one we call as self-pollination, and the second one we call as cross-pollination. For example, the self-pollination means the pollination. In the self-pollination, the pollen grains of one flower reaches the stigma of the same flower. We call that pollination as self-pollination. So where this is possible means this is possible only in the bisexual flowers. Why? Because the bisexual flowers include both stamens and carpel or pistils within the same flower. That's why the pollen of that one flower reach the stigma of that same flower. Such pollination we call as self-pollination. But coming to another one we call as cross-pollination. So in the cross-pollination, the pollen grains of stamen reach to the stigma of the another flower of the same plant or of the different plant. Such pollination we call as cross-pollination. This takes place in the unisexual, even bisexual flowers also. Why? Because here in the cross-pollination, the pollen of the stamen reaches to the here. The pollen grains from one anther, one stamen should reach to the stigma of another flower of the same group, or another flower of the same plant, or another flower of the different plant of the same group we call as cross pollination. And once the pollination happens, here the pollination occurs by different agents. The pollination occurs either through wind or either through water, even by birds, insects, the animals. These all are responsible in the part of pollination. Mostly the pollination done by the insects. So here once the pollen grains reach to the stigma of the carpel, immediately the stigma secretes some sugary substance, some sticky substance which include sugars and amino acids, which provide nutrients for the germination of the pollen grain to form the pollen tube. So once the pollen grains reaches fall on the stigma, it starts germinating and form a pollen tube. And here we have to learn about the structure of the ovule actually. Ovule is the female reproductive part which are developed inside the ovaries, and if you observe the ovule, it is covered by some membranes or layers. We call the membranes as integuments. And the ovule, inside the ovule there is a small microscopic oval shaped structure that we call as embryo sac. This we call as female gametophyte. So what is the female gametophyte of the ovule means? Embryo sac, microscopic structure present inside the ovule. It is a female gametophyte. And if you observe the structure of the embryo sac is a special structure which is made up of totally 7 cells with the 8 nuclei. Most of the flowering plants contain the embryo, which include 7 cells, but those are 8 nuclei. So in these, the 3 cells, what we call the mass antipodals, and here in the central there is a special cell we call as central cell, which include 2 nuclei, 2 polar nuclei. It is 1 cell only, but it include 2 nuclei that we call as central cell. And here at the opening at the end where the pollen tube enters into the ovule, embryo sac, at that side again 3 cells are present. In these 3 cells, the middle cell, central cell we call as egg cell, and the surrounding 2 cells which are adjacent to the egg cell we call as synergids. These synergids takes place a role in fertilization process. Okay, now we will see that. So this is the structure of embryo sac. Embryo sac is a special structure that include 7 cells with 8 nuclei. In the 7 cells, 3 are antipodals and 1 is egg cell, 2 are synergids, and the middle central cell contain 2 polar nuclei. So here we have to mainly remember central cell and egg cell. And once the pollen grain fall on the stigma, it just germinate and form the pollen tube. This pollen tube passes through the style of the carpel and finally reaches to the ovule. And this pollen tube contains 2 main nuclei. The pollen tube contains 2 main nuclei actually. So these 2 main nuclei reaches to the embryo sac, and here the most important fertilization takes place. Just listen all of you carefully. You already know that fertilization means the fusion of the male and female gamete. The fertilization is the process, the fusion of male and female gametes form zygote. So here in most of the flowering plants, the fertilization occurs twice or 2 times. So that's why we call this fertilization as double fertilization. What we call the fertilization? Double fertilization. How the double fertilization means? Just look carefully. In the first fertilization process, one of the male nuclei fuses with the one of the male nuclei of the present in the pollen tube fuses with the egg cell. So it leads to the formation of zygote. Here 2n means diploid state of the chromosomes indicates. And here once the first fertilization over, even the another male nuclei present in the pollen tube will enter into the central cell. But before that, the 2 nuclei present in the central cell, at the time of fertilization, the 2 nuclei join together and form a single nucleus that we call as fusion nucleus. So second male nuclei of the pollen tube fuses with the central cell. And to form a special cell we call as endosperm cell. Even in old books it is represented as pen. Why? Because pen means primary endospermic nucleus. But in new books they given pack means primary endospermic cells. So here the fertilization occurs 2 times in all the flowering plants. Most of the flowering plants, in the first fertilization, one of the male nuclei of the pollen tube reaches to the egg cell and fertilizes the egg cell to form the zygote. This zygote later develops into the seed. And the second male nuclei present in the pollen tube reaches the central cell and fuses the special structures known as endosperm. And this endosperm provides nutrients once the seed is germinating. The endosperm provides nutrients for the growing embryo. So most of the seeds, while they are developing, by the development process, the embryo utilizes most of the food present in the endosperm, such seeds. So they contain little or no amount of endosperm. Such seeds we call as non-endospermic seeds like castor beans. But if you take the corn seeds, these corn seeds, in those seeds, most of the endosperm still remains after complete development of the seed. Such seeds we call as endospermic seeds. And here, during the seed germination, once the fertilization over, the zygote will develop into seeds. Means here what are the changes takes place means here the ovule will develop into seed. The ovule will develop into seed, and what is that? The ovary will develop into fruit, and remaining most of the structures will be shrivel off, means fall off. Even integuments also sometimes remains as the layers over the seed coat. They form the integuments of ovule, they form the seed coat. Mainly these 2 changes you need to remember. Ovule will turns into seed after fertilization and ovary will develop into fruits. Once the seeds are formed, these seeds will be germinated into the new plant. During the seed germination process, you just observe that the seeds contain the special structures. The content we call as cotyledon. What we call cotyledons. So if the plants contain only one cotyledon, we call the plants as monocots. What we call monocots. If the plants contain 2 monocots, rice, wheat, most cereal family plants, means grass family plants like wheat, rice, corn, these all we call as monocots. But if the plant contains 2 seed leaves or cotyledons, we call them as dicots. For example, all the pulses like black gram, red gram, bengal gram, even groundnut, moong dal, these all seeds contain 2 cotyledons or seed leaves in them by germinating. Such seeds we call as dicots. And at the time of germination, we observe the seed contain these three important structures. This one cotyledon and these 2 small structures. This is plumule and this one radicle. Plumule later develops into the shoot of the plant, means stem goes on, and this radical part later develops into the root of the plant. These are the changes takes place. So the next property, cell cycle. So here the cells continuously divide to form new cells, which is actually needed for our body growth, even for repair of damaged body parts or healing of wounds, even for the process of reproduction also. There is a need of cell division. Coming to few scientists who came across in the cell cycle topic. So for first, Rudolf Virchow, who was one of the proponent of cell theory, he is given the phrase that unicellular decellular means all the new cells are arised from the pre-existing cells, means all the new cells are came from the old cells. The phrase like omnicellular decellular, that was given by the Rudolf Virchow. And the next scientist, Robert Remak, he observed the different embryos which are undergo the process of cell division. He stated that, Remak stated that the binary fission of cells actually the means of reproduction in the animals. The binary fission means simply one cell fish are split into two new cells. So that is actually takes place during the reproduction stated by Robert Remak. And the next, Walter Fleming. So until that, the scientists thought that some threadlets, actually while he observing the cell division in various cells, he found that very 5 thread-like structures which are present in the nucleus of the cell. And these thread-like structures split longitudinally during the process of cell division. That's why he called the type of division as mitosis. Walter Fleming, he observed many cells, and in the cells the nucleus, again in the cells the nucleus was present. In the nucleus the thread-like structures known as actually mitose, and he called that process as mitosis. Why? Because these thread-like structures just simply splitting into two. That's why we call the division as mitosis. Mitosis means 5 threads. So later, at that time they don't know what are the thread-like structure. Later, by staining techniques, some of the structures in the nucleus of the cell, they take more strain and they are clearly visible, and that thread-like structure later they are called as chromosomes. And next, one more scientist, Wilhelm Rauch. He stated that the chromosomes are the thread-like structure. They carry the set of heritable elements. Here, what are heritable elements means? Actually, the heritable elements are known as genes. Actually, every cell contains nucleus unit, which is the cell's control room. And in the cell's control room, actually, the important structures known as chromosomes are present. These chromosomes contain set of heritable elements, means the set of heritable elements are nothing but genes actually. So the nucleus contains genetic material in the form of DNA, and the segments of DNA, the portions of DNA we call as genes. These genes are exist on the thread-like structures known as chromosomes. So this genetic material actually decides the characteristic of a living being. Every character of living being was determined by the genetic material of DNA, and the segments are the portions of DNA we call as genes. These genes are present on the chromosomes, are present in the nucleus. Actually, at normal time, means when the cell not divide, means that when the cell is not participating in cell division, at that time the chromosomes are not visible yet, not actually those are invisible. That's why they are present small thread-like structures. These are present in network-like structure. That network is called as chromatin network. Means here the chromosomes are not visible clearly when the cell is not divided. They are present in how the threads are rolled indiscriminately, how the cells are rolled it just a mass or network of threads that we call as chromatin network. But only the process of cell division, the chromatin network threads, they become short and they turn into the chromosomes. So I hope all of you clear what are chromosomes and what are genes. So Wilhelm Rauch stated that these chromosomes only carry heritable elements or nothing but genes. And next, August Weismann. So scientists they thought that actually every living being contain a specific number of chromosomes. For example, if you consider human being, a human contains 23 pairs of chromosomes. How many chromosomes? 23 pairs means totally 46 chromosomes. So if you take any human being, in the human being species, every human being the same number of chromosomes means by his observations, August Weismann observations, he stated 2 points. First one means every living being of same species contain the same number of chromosomes, means all human beings contain one number of chromosomes. For example, all tigers contain same number of chromosomes, all mango trees contain the same number of chromosomes. And he also stated that a very important point, the chromosome number will not be changed from one generation to another generation. Means here how many chromosomes are present in a parent cell, what are the daughter cells after the cell division, even the daughter cells also contain the same number of chromosomes. So actually how that was happened later we will see that. So he stated that every organism of the same species contains same number of chromosomes and the chromosome number remains constant even after successive generation, means from one generation to another generation. And Theodore Boveri, he just given the schematic picture of the mitotic cell division. And next, even most of you are aware of that these two scientist names may be heard that which are actually the founder of modern genetics, actually whose discoveries made to reveal the structure of DNA. Means the nucleic acid present in the nucleus of a cell that we call as DNA, means deoxyribonucleic acid. That DNA structure which is having double helical structure, that was revealed by the two scientists James Watson and Francis. These together, just after their discoveries, they give the structure of the DNA like double helical structure and what are the different sugars present in it, everything given by the James Watson and Francis Crick. And coming to cell division in human beings, for example, if you take the different parts of your body, all the cells will not have the same type of dividing capacity. For example, if you take either heart or brain, the cells in those parts will not divide ever. Means once the cell is damaged in those parts, they may not be replaced by the new cells. But some of your cells in your body, they have a great dividing capacity. For example, blood cells. So you know that the red blood cells are RBC. The red blood cells are RBC, having 120 days of lifespan. After 120 days, these RBC destroyed in the liver and spleen. And the bone marrow means the dark red color portion which is present in the long bones. This bone marrow actively producing the new blood cells. That's why even the old RBC destroyed, at the same time new RBC were formed. So even healing of wounds, any wound happen to your body parts, in skin, all those will be replaced by new cells within the few days. So for these all, the cell division is most important. And here now you will see that actually what is the cell cycle. Means, for example, the cell division, generally cell division we call as mitotic division, and that division, the cell division, mitotic division or mitosis, for completion of one cell division or for mitotic division, it nearly take 40 to 60 minutes, means it nearly take 1 hour. But here for readying of mitotic phase, For the participation of mitotic division, the cell need to prepare itself. The cell need to prepare itself. So the time gap between the two mitotic divisions we call as interphase. For example, how you study intermediate between the SSC and graduation means. So between we call as intermediate. So in the same way, the phase or the time period between the two mitotic divisions we call as the interphase. In the interphase, the cell is ready to undergo different changes to participate in the mitotic cell division. Okay, so again the interphase mainly divided into three steps. First one G1, second one S, and the third one G2. Here G1 means gap 1 phase, S means synthesis phase, and G2 means gap 2. So what are the different changes takes place in these three? For example, G1 in the gap 1 phase, the cell size actually increases. And coming to S phase, here the most important process takes place in S phase. That is DNA synthesis or duplication of chromosomes. Very important. Why there is a need to duplication of chromosomes? For example, one of our human cell will be divided with having 46 chromosomes. So if the cell will be divided into two cells, so one cell will get 23 chromosomes and one cell will get 23 chromosomes. Again, this cell will divide 2 chromosomes means still that number will be half. But that is not happening actually. Why? Because all the cells of your human body contain a same number, means only 23 takes a 46 chromosomes. So how does this happen? How this is possible means before undergoing the cell division, the chromosomes present in the nucleus of cells become doubles. Means here the genetic material, the DNA makes its own copy, means it just makes its similar copy or similar xerox. How we take one original into one xerox paper. In the same way, one of the DNA molecule, for example, this is the DNA molecule, it just divided into 2 strands. And this strand will make its own copy and this strand will make own copy. In this way, the DNA is doubled, even the chromosomes also duplicated, means doubled. So because of that only, for example, before undergoing the cell division, the number of chromosomes will get doubled, means 46, 92. So because of that, again these two cells also get having 46 chromosomes only. So this is major important step. Because of this only, the number of chromosomes remain constant in every cell within a living being of the same species. Okay, now? So S is the DNA synthesis, means duplication of chromosomes. Next G2 phase. In the G2 phase, the remaining cell arguments also divide to distribute equally to the 2 daughter cells. So we will see that what are actually 2 types of cell divisions are there. Most commonly for all normal vegetative cells or somatic cells, except the reproductive cells. Are gametes. Remaining all cells of your body we call as vegetative cells or somatic cells. These all vegetative cells, the type of cell division we call as mitosis. From the mitosis, by the end of the mitosis, from one cell we get 2 cells, and here this is the 2n. 2n means this indicates the chromosome state, means diploid, means for example one cell contains 2 sets of chromosomes. Even the 2 daughter cells also contain 2 sets of chromosomes. So in the mitosis, by the end 2 daughter cells are formed, and the daughter cells also have the same chromosome number, and even in the diploid state, means just the xerox copy of their mother cell or parent cell. And coming to meiosis division, for example, your body contains 46 chromosomes. During the process of reproduction, the body produces female gametes known as ovules. For example, if the ovum contains 46 chromosomes, even the male body also contains, the male body cell produce the male gametes known as sperm cells. Just imagine, If ovum contains 46 chromosomes, even if sperm contains 46 chromosomes, because of the mitosis, the number of chromosomes will be same as with the parent cell. So, for example, if the mother cell, from the mother cell, if the ovum having 46 chromosomes and the sperm having 46 chromosomes, during the fertilization process, the ovum and sperm fuse together and to form the zygote cell. And how many number of chromosomes in the zygote? There is totally 92. For example, if the zygote, again in the next, this is, for example, this is first generation. So in the next generation, again, this cell and this cell divide. How many? 194. So this gets double like this. So if the chromosomes number doubles means even the characteristics also changes, but this does not happen. So to avoid that, during the formation of reproductive cells or during the formation of gametes like sperm and ovum, there is a special type of cell division takes place that we call as meiosis. Meiosis is quite different with the mitotic. Why? Because during the meiosis process, what are the female gamete like ovum and sperm will get only the half number of chromosomes, from the parent cell. Means, for example, if the cell having 46, how many the ovum receive? 23. If the cell having 46, how many the sperm receiving? 23. If again they unite, they together join, the new zygote also having 46 chromosomes. How it was possible means only because of the meiosis. Even that's why meiosis is also known as reduction division. In the meiosis, in the mitotic division, the chromosome number will be same as the parent cell, but coming to meiotic cell division, the number of chromosomes will be reduced to half, and the meiosis takes place only during the formation of ovum and sperm cell, means only during the formation of gametes in the sexual reproduction. Because of that only, even the sperm and ovum join also, the zygote will receive the same number of chromosomes. Again, the zygote by many cell divisions it forms into embryo, and at that time again mitosis only takes place, but meiosis only occurs during the formation of gametes, means during the formation of sperm and the ovum. So that is very important. And the state of the chromosomes, for example, if the parent cell contain 2n, here 2n indicates means two sets of chromosomes. In the mitosis, the parent cell, the daughter cell both having same sets of chromosomes, same state means same number of chromosomes, diploid state. But during the meiosis, for example, if the daughters are having two sets of chromosomes means 2n, but the daughter cell will have only one set of chromosomes. Why? Because chromosomes number get half now. That's why if 2n means if 46 means how many it will receive? Only single n means only 23. So that is very important. Now we will see that what are the different sequences takes place in the mitosis. Mitosis again it includes 4 stages. First one prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase and telophase. In the prophase, actually I already told to you, when the cell is not divided, the chromosomes are actually invisible under the light microscope, also invisible. So actually the chromosome not visible in the thread-like structures. These are like small reticular structures that we call as chromatin threads or chromatin network. What we call them? Chromatin threads. So when the cell enter into the mitotic division at the prophase time, these chromatin network-like structures, they become condensed and they become shortened to form the thread-like structure. Clearly visible thread-like structures we call them as chromosomes. That we call as chromatin threads. These are we call as chromosomes. So when we see the formation of chromosomes from chromatin means in the prophase, and in the prophase time, the nuclear membrane which surrounds the nucleus and the nucleolus small structure present in the nucleus of the cell, both start disappearing. Nucleus and nuclear membrane start slowly disappearing. These also changes. Chromosomes thickened, shortened and condensed, clearly visible as red light structure, and nuclear membrane and nucleus start disappearing. Even the centrosome is a rod-like structure present only in the animal cells every time, but in the plant cells during the cell division the centrosome is present. So here the centriole starts producing thread-like structures. We call them as spindle fibers. In the prophase only, the centriole rod-like cell organelle present in animal cell and clearly producing spindle-like structures. We call them as spindle fibers. These all are the changes takes place in the prophase. And coming to metaphase, the spindle fibers and here even the chromosome also splits longitudinally, and here in this way it splits, and here it forms two chromatids, and these two chromatids will be attached at the centromere region. Here it will be attached at the centromere. In the metaphase, the two chromatids will be completely because of the formation of spindle fiber. The spindle fiber attaches to centromere of chromosomes, and these all centromeres of the chromosomes move to the equator, and it will appear like this. Means all the chromosomes, centromeres are appear at the center of the nucleus. This is metaphase. And coming to anaphase, these spindle fibers starts contracting. Because of that, the centromeres which are attached to spindle fibers also pull towards the poles. That's why the chromatids will be separate at the centromere region, and they will be moved to the opposite poles. So, and telophase, this is the last phase, and during the telophase, simply we can say that this is opposite to prophase. During the telophase, the chromatids again will be changes into chromatin-like structures, and the nuclear membrane start appearing. Even the nucleus will also start appearing again, and here the spindle fiber starts slowly disappearing, and nuclear membrane forms around the chromosome. If it is plant cell, the cell membrane along with the cell wall also start producing, and remaining wall cell organ starts appearing, and here two daughter cells will be formed. The nucleus will be divided, two nuclei will be moving to different poles, and the nuclear membrane, the cell membrane, everything starts appearing. So until the end of two daughter cells are produced. Meiosis is also same, but in the meiosis again two phases are there. Meiosis 1, meiosis 2. In the meiosis 1, the chromosomes will divide only once, but the cell divide twice. At the meiosis 1, totally two cells are formed. But these two cells again enter into meiosis 2, and finally lead to the formation of four haploid cells. Means four cells which are having half number of chromosomes to their mother cell, a parent cell. And so this is the cell division over. And the next category, reproductive health. So even especially coming to adolescence, it is very important to maintain hygiene and the reproductive health. Many changes takes place at the adolescence age. Already in 8th class adolescence lesson you crossed those all changes and you learned about those all. And here there is different pressures for the adolescence at that age. Means here some pressure from the peer group or your friends to insist some bad habits and to insist to some bad things, but you have to should be positive and you have to just simply avoid those all. Why? Because this is actually not good for you. So even our government just declared the 18 years for marriages for girls and 21 for boys. And here if the girls marriage at early age, it lead to the health problems of the mother and the newborn baby also. So that's why avoid the early marriages and child marriages. the next one STDs. STDs means sexually transmitted diseases, means some diseases. Anyway, sexual reproduction involves parents and two partners. That's why there may be a chance to spread the infections from one partner to the another partner. So to avoid that, because of that, some diseases may also present. Disease may also arise. Those we called as sexually transmitted disease. In these, some diseases are bacterial and some are caused by the virus. And here the bacterial STDs, example syphilis and gonorrhea. Syphilis and gonorrhea. Syphilis and gonorrhea. And AIDS. AIDS is caused by AIDS is also one of STD, means one of sexually transmitted disease. Even it is also caused by the infected mother to child, and by using infected syringes and infected the person whose blood is infected with HIV will transfuse to the healthy person. Even that person also may have the chance to get the AIDS. So HIV mainly caused by the sexual transmission, by using infected syringes and infected things, and mainly because of the blood transfusion. These all are the conditions. And the next one, AIDS is caused by the HIV virus. Means AIDS means actually not a disease, it is a syndrome. Syndrome means group of diseases we call as syndrome. AIDS means acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. It is caused by a virus known as HIV, means human immunodeficiency virus. Human immunodeficiency virus. So once the HIV enters into your body, just target your T lymphocytes or immune cells of your body. That's why your immune system become weak and you are prone to all diseases. So the person will be just attract all type of bacteria and virus to cause different infections. So because of that, many diseases lead to came to the person. The condition only we call as AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So it is till now there is no cure for the HIV AIDS, and there is only prevention is only the cure. And so coming to cases of HIV, we are very actually by the 2011 statistics, the Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are in the first and second stage of the HIV patients, and later followed by Maharashtra and Karnataka. ATM means first one Andhra Pradesh in the HIV cases, Telangana, Maharashtra and Karnataka. And to provide proper medical help to the HIV patients, our government introduced some ART centers, means antiretroviral therapy centers. These provide some medical help or medicines, supply medicines to the HIV patients. And ASHA means accredited. Most times in public examination, asked that what is ASHA? ASHA. What is that? ASHA. ASHA ante accredited social health activist. These accredited social health activists, these are mainly provide awareness among the people for causes and symptoms of the HIV or AIDS. Even Red Bell Express, which was conducted in the schools to create awareness. Even 1st December, they just first of the December, it is the AIDS day, means just it is the day to conduct awareness about the AIDS. And the next one, birth control methods. So preventing pregnancy by preventing fertilization, that we call as contraception. So preventing the pregnancy of a mother by preventing the fertilization process we call as contraception. And any device or anything what we use for contraception or preventing pregnancy, that we call as contraceptive method. And in the contraception we are using some of the physical things, chemical, even surgical. Even physical contraceptive devices are condoms and diaphragms. Condoms for men and diaphragm for female or women. And chemical contraceptive methods are hormonal pills. These hormonal pills are special for both men and women. These simply are killing the egg cell or sperm cells, and the cells which can kill the sperms we call as spermicides. Spermicides are the hormonal pills which can help to kill the sperms. And the next one, surgical contraceptive methods. Surgical contraceptive methods, again it is of two types. In the surgical contraception, they simply, in the males, they remove the vas deferens. they remove the vas deferens as sperm ducts. They cut the two ends of the vas deferens. After that they tied. So that method we call as vasectomy. Vasectomy means cutting and tying the ends of the vas deferens. Vas deferens of the man. This is for men. And pubectomy. Pubectomy in the female, they cut the ends of the fallopian tubes and after that they tie both the ends. Here vasectomy used to prevent the sperms to enter, pass into the vas deferens, and pubectomy helped to stop the entry of the ovum to the oviductal fallopian tube. So pubectomy is a very important. Pubectomy for female, vasectomy for male. And to some devices like copper T. Copper T is also one intrauterine device which is cut by the doctors in the uterus region. These intrauterine devices are very effective in preventing the pregnancy. So here, by just knowing good habits and by just following the good habits, you just simply keep your health in a better way.